Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Tony Martinez. I am the broker of Extreme International Realty, and today I'm wearing two hats. I'm here talking as a real estate broker and also as the proud creator of the Short Sale Mastery program. And this presentation today is kind of geared toward a dual audience. Part of the audience are licensed real estate professionals, and the other part are consumers who may or may not be in a position where they're going through a difficult time or they know someone that is. I'm kind of going to go into the what, why, and how of this presentation. The situation is as follows. Florida has never really exited the foreclosure crisis, and that's where I'm based out of. And I have a passion for helping people avoid foreclosure. Back in 2008, when the mortgage crisis hit and the world kind of came to an end, I had the privilege of traveling all over the country, teaching real estate professionals how to engage in short sales and help people avoid foreclosure. And it was an amazing experience for me. Let's start with the premise that not everybody knows what a short sale is. A short sale is a situation where the homeowner owes more than the property is worth. They owe more than the property can actually sell for. After you take in consideration what is owed on the mortgage or mortgages, they may have association that they owe, they may have taxes that they owe, and then there are the fees associated with the sale. So the property has to be underwater, all right? So that's the first premise. Now, Florida right now is number 5 in the nation when it comes to foreclosures. And even though foreclosures are no longer front page news, they're no longer sexy, as I call it, because you don't hear people talking about it all the time, for thousands and tens of thousands of people across the country, it is a very real nightmare that they're living through right now. And we as real estate professionals, I believe, have a duty, a responsibility, an obligation to help people avoid foreclosure at all costs. Now, there are foreclosure alternatives that allow folks to stay in the home, and I've always been an advocate that we should do everything possible to help someone stay in the home. But when those have been exhausted and there's no conceivable way that they can stay in the home, you have to look for an exit, right? And there's two ways you can exit from that scenario. You could be escorted out by the sheriff, okay? Or you can exit in the most dignified manner possible with the least amount of consequences and damages to your present and future situation. And that's where a short sale comes in. Now, my motivation for launching this training, even though behind the scenes I've been doing training for the last several years anyway, is that the situation we're in right now as a country with the pandemic and the lockdowns, without a doubt, unfortunately, is going to lead to another wave of foreclosures. That is sad, but it is true. As we on live right now, there are still several states that are completely locked down with no date set for them to open back up. And even when they do, when are things going to get back to normal? So I do see another wave of foreclosures coming. Now, that does not mean, please take note, it does not mean that every foreclosure equals a short sale. No, the person has to be underwater. But what if we see a dramatic reduction in property values? Now, I'm not a doom and gloom person, but I do believe in being ready. I do believe in being prepared. Watch this scenario. Without FHA financing, we would not have a real estate market right now, or for the past several years. Most real estate, most buyers using FHA come in with the bare minimum 3.5% down. That means they really only have 3.5% equity. If they're recent buyers or in the last couple of years, they don't have a significant amount of equity to fall back on. So what happens if they cannot make their payments, they cannot resolve something with the bank, and the double whammy happens where they lose enough value in the property that there is no longer any equity and a short sale comes into the equation. This is why it's so important for real estate professionals to be prepared to provide guidance, provide non-legal, non-tax advice, but real estate advice to individuals in a situation. Now, we talk numbers all the time, and when you talk numbers, you can lose sight of the very real fact that there are people that are going through a difficult time and have gone through it. And I call it the face of foreclosure, putting a face to foreclosure. And that is why I am so thrilled and honored to have Madeline join me here today. Wave to everyone there, Madeline. You can still hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Now, Madeline has become kind of a friend of ours because we had the pleasure of helping her and her husband avoid foreclosure via a short sale a few months ago. And it just takes so much courage. It takes, I think, such a big heart to put herself out there and to go ahead and come out with this transparency. Because I asked her, I says, would you be willing to go ahead and share your story? Because there's got to be so many people out there right now that are going through this or know someone that's going through this, and they don't know the toll it takes, or that maybe there is a light at the end of the tunnel, right? So let's do this. Madeline, tell them, and, you know, we talked about this yesterday and how we can do this, because we would probably need about 5 hours to kind of go through everything you went through. But when you and your husband bought what you would then call your forever home, what year was it that you bought that home?
We bought it in 2005.
Okay. And so that was kind of like at the top of the market right then, right?
It was crazy. We basically had one night we saw the house, and when we reached, it was for sale by owner. And when we reached out to them, they basically, we went to see it, and we had to decide that day if you wanted it or not. Because if you didn't decide that day, it was
gone.
There was a list. There was actually a list of people, and we were actually told, if you choose our title company, then we'll choose you. And we said, okay, whatever, we want the house.
Okay.
I want it.
If you choose our title company, we'll choose you. Okay, we'll leave the names of these folks out of that so they don't get in trouble for that.
Oh yeah, no, we're not. I don't even remember most of the names.
Yeah, we'll leave that part out. So at beginning, you mentioned that you went through a honeymoon period, right? As when you bought the home, this is the home you wanted. You were going to raise your family there. You were going to grow old and get the rocking chairs out, right?
Yes, we actually had a rocking chair at one point. Yes. It was. We loved the house. I still remember, actually, before we even called, when we just saw the house was listed, we drove there and we were like, oh my goodness, it was renovated. When we first drove up to it, we didn't know it had been renovated, but we went to the backyard and we saw the pool, and we just immediately, this is it. Like, we want this house. This was
it. So
this was it.
So the process at first, and I think this is the case for many folks, it starts off wonderful, right? It's everything they wanted. And then one of the things I always teach agents out there is to ask a very critical question at some point in the conversation with someone like yourself. And that is, we need to establish if there is a hardship. Now, for a hardship, my definition is what material change took place from the time that you bought the home until the time that you contacted the real estate agent or something, that you could no longer, maybe you were struggling with the house or you couldn't make the payments. Now, for some people, it comes on immediately, right? It's a loss of job, a super reduction in income, maybe sickness or something. But yours was more gradual, was it not?
Yes. I like to put it into like 3 phases, which was the honeymoon phase, which was awesome. You move in, everything's great. We did, during that honeymoon phase, neglect to look at certain details, like the inspections back then, they were done just like real quick. We didn't look at things, we just, so we entered into a different phase, which I call a roller coaster. We went from the honeymoon, and to an emotional roller coasters of years of just different things happening, you know. We had lots of, and I have little notes here that I wrote. We had hurricanes. We went through hurricanes, like emotional hurricanes also, but we went through real hurricanes. And I had a school at the house. We even rented out rooms to try to make ends meet. We had major repairs with our house, along with having great moments. You know, we loved we knew all of our neighbors. So we were just, and it got to a point after, I guess I want to say 10 years, that it got, you know, we had already saved our home once through NACA, but then, you know, life happens, you know, repairs, just crazy. And it got to a point where we were back in that hardship, that hardship I couldn't pinpoint. I can pinpoint the one, I think, before, but yeah, this time that we fell behind, it's like,
It was Cuba.
I can't remember.
Right.
I know it was 5 years before the actual date that we, you know, met you know, sat down with you guys. Those last 5 years we were still trying, we, you know, had that hope of saving our house. We had an acquaintance that knew somebody that said, I can help you stay in the house. And that was just,
okay. Let me jump in. So it started off fine. Then you realize, because you made a hasty decision, the inspection, that's another great lesson. You really didn't pay attention to the inspection. You found out things after the fact that would cost you repairs.
Thousands.
Natural disasters, nothing that was your fault came in. Next thing you know, your roof is caving in. You got a huge gap in your roof. All these things are happening. Now, during this whole time, you're fighting as hard as you can. You even went and had it refinanced and everything else.
Right.
You know why I say that? Because there's a lot of judgment in our society and in our world right now. And when somebody thinks in terms of somebody going into foreclosure, there is a certain section of the population that you automatically think, wow, those people are irresponsible. Those people, and that's not you. That's not you and your husband. And then let's transition now to, you went into save our house mode, right? And this lasted 5 years. 5 years where you lawyered up, or you hired somebody.
We had a middleman.
You had a middleman that was, you were paying them something monthly.
And he was,
and he was buying you time.
Something like that. Something to that. I was never really comfortable with it. I always knew from the get-go in my heart, like, this is not going to work. I wanted it to work, because even within these 5 years, I still had dreams with the house. I had all these plans that I wanted to, you know, do Airbnb with part of the house, and make it into like a little vacation oasis. Even it was small house, it still had room to actually live in it and do Airbnb. And I had it all planned out. Like in my mind, I was going to do this. But in the back of my mind, it was so much uncertainty of not knowing what was going to happen. It was just like not knowing. Years would go by and you don't know what's going to happen. And you get to a point where, and then what really just was the roof situation. We could no longer patch it, paint it, you know, to the point where I actually, it caved in at one point, and I put 4 foam boards from Dollar Tree and I covered it. And you really couldn't, you know, you couldn't tell. You'd walk in our house and it was just
you're
cute,
doing
like,
everything you could.
Yes.
So what happens is, and you know, I only, forgive me for cutting in, but we all know people's attention span is limited. I'm sure there was a time, some friction between you and your husband as far as the direction to go.
Yes.
Yeah, and that happens. That's very, very common. Okay, but you got to a point, okay, when your husband finally said, or something said, I got to talk to someone. And in this case, it was through a referral, through a family member that said, you ought to call Tony and Gabi, they can help you. And I remember to this day, I think it was a Saturday, I took the call from your husband. I'm in my garage, organizing my garage. And I could tell in just the first few minutes of speaking with him that you guys had done just about everything you could. But it was at the end of your rope. You had a
Yes.
sale date. You
Yes.
had done multiple postponements of the
Yes.
previous sale dates. The
Yes.
likelihood that you would get another one without taking
Was
some action
was
was not there.
that was it.
That was it. And so what I did, and what, you know, because I walked the talk, right? I kind of did a little interview on the phone with your husband. I found out, ¿qué pasó? I always start off by saying, what happened? ¿Qué pasó? He tells me, what have you done? Are you now prepared to get out and get on with your life? And he goes, yes, we are. I said, perfect. You all need to come into the office and we need to sit down together. And describe briefly how you felt when you came into our office and you met with Gabby, my wife and business partner, and I, and you and your husband were there. How did you feel? You were a little uncomfortable, right?
I was, yeah, because like I said, it's something that you know you have to go through. You know it has to happen, but you don't like. One of the things that happened at the very end was that I was ready. I would always say I'm okay with losing the house. Like I was okay with keeping it, and I was okay with losing it. But when you really sit there and it's happening, it's like it feels so. It doesn't feel like it's happening, but you want to explain yourself. You want to express yourself. I wanted to just let you know I am. Short sale it has a negative connotation to it. It's better than a foreclosure, but
Right.
it still means you failed, you made mistakes. So yes, it was not, even though you guys made us feel very comfortable, very like we weren't the only ones that had ever gone through this, and that you guys had also gone through moments that were difficult and similar. Yep. Everybody's story is different, but they still has a similarity to it at the end of the, and yeah, so it wasn't pleasant, but I knew that's what we had to do.
And you left there. You told me you left there believing that, okay, we made the right decision. And just for the audience here, you left there having signed the listing agreement. We already had spoken to you. We already had said, listen, this is what you're prepared to do. Bring documentation in. You came in with all the documentation we needed. We knew time was of the essence. We were running out of time. We needed to go into triage mode. We took the listing, we put it on the market right away. Fast forward a little bit, we dealt with every issue, including a roof that's partially not there, a transaction that came and went. But when it was all said and done, we got the short sale approved, right? We got it approved. Yes. Then we came down to the closing. And that day, describe that day, because I want the audience to understand what a successful short sale is. In a successful short sale, it's not just enough to get a bank approval. Okay, obviously that's critical, but there's also one major component that so many agents neglect. And look, if you're an agent or a consumer, please, if you don't hear anything else, hear this. Florida, as well as many other states, we are a deficiency state. That means that after a short sale, or especially after a foreclosure, the bank can go after you for anything that they lost. And when you do a foreclosure, you're opening yourself up to the potential for a deficiency judgment. So it's not enough just to get the bank to say, yes, we will okay the short sale, which is wonderful. You also want them to give you 100% waiver of liability, which means you can now sleep with both eyes open. No, closed.
Yeah, we were sleeping with one eye open.
One eye open before. And you could sleep because you know that it's done. So how did it feel that day when you finally signed and you knew you were done?
Right. Well, before I get to that one, I just wanted to mention that everything that you said was going to happen, it happened just like that. So we felt very relieved that everything that you said, and Gabby, that's what happened. That's how it played out. So that was great. And also that day, I want to call that day the grand finale. We went from the honeymoon to the emotional roller coaster, and this is what I call the grand finale. It wasn't, these moments sometimes are not supposed to have a happy ending, but this was the grand finale. It was seamless. It was just, we went in, we signed what we had to sign. We knew, we were confident that everything that we were signing, we didn't have to feel like, oh my goodness, like we just knew.
Yeah.
It felt perfect, and it was awesome.
It's like that's one of the things I tell people. You get to exit with dignity because the process is exactly like a traditional sale. You know, you came to the closing table, you already had vacated the property, you left it ready for the new owners, you signed all the documents. Now, we also had a little surprise for you at the closing. You remember what that was?
Yes, I do. It was
Okay. Well, the bank did something nice for you, didn't they?
oh yes, we weren't supposed to, get it, but yeah, we were given cash for keys. I almost forgot. That's how we were able to move into our new place. Yeah, they gave us, I can't remember, was it
It,
3,000?
yeah, it was a nice little relocation allowance.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness, it was great.
And
It
so
was
what I tell people all the time
bonus.
is, yeah, it's a bonus. And I tell people all the time, look, guys, we never make a promise that we can't
Mm-mm.
deliver on. And it's nice when we can surprise our customers because the banks don't always give a relocation. And how about this? If you already left the property, you're definitely not going to get a relocation because you already done relocated. So, you guys were there, you did everything the right way, you didn't cause a fuss or a ruckus and everything
Mm-mm.
else. And so you were able to go ahead and get a nice little incentive or monies that could help you do it. Now, one last story to share. You had always told me that you dreaded rainy days. You
Yes.
dreaded rainy days because you had this monstrous hole in your roof. And I can imagine what you guys had to
Well,
go through.
we had multiple leaks.
Multiple
It was
holes.
not it wasn't like a hole. It was like just leaks
Leaks.
everywhere. So and I didn't mean to interrupt you, but for like those 5 years, there were multiple leaks, and we fixed and patched them a lot and
Hmm.
painted. But every time it rained, it was like it was, I used to love the
Stressful.
rain, but it was not a good feeling. Like if it rained, it was like, please don't rain. I don't care if there's a drought. Like please,
Don't
like
rain.
don't rain.
So what happened on closing day? After you left the office, you're done, you're free, you're starting your life over again. What happened that day?
Okay, so we left and we went to cash that check, and the nearest we had to cash that check. So we went to the nearest bank in Weston, and we sat down at a little restaurant. And as soon as we sat down and looked outside the window, it started pouring, not
Wow.
drizzling, but
Pouring.
pouring. And it was the best rain ever. Like I'm telling you, the grand finale,
Yeah.
rain was awesome. And then when we came home to our new home, and it rained again, and we were inside our new home, our new town, it's a townhouse. We were up in our bedroom, and we just kind of I think we fell asleep. And it was just the best rain. Now rain actually is a reminder. Every time it rains, we're thankful. Every time it rains, I thank God we're not in that situation anymore. So it's actually a reminder, but it's a good feeling. Instead of
Yeah.
it being, it was something bad, God can turn situations that are not meant for good into something good. And
Absolutely.
that's what happened here. It's awesome. Like I said, you guys were the grand finale.
Well, listen, we're so glad and we're so thrilled and blessed to have been a part of that journey to help you. I hope that others that are listening in or will share this with people that are going through what you're going through, that they can see that there's a light at the end of the tunnel
Absolutely.
because you're in a great environment now. You're renting now, and
Hmm.
look, chances are that, and because a short sale is less punitive than a foreclosure or a bankruptcy, you all, if you decide to, you can buy again in
Hmm.
as little as 2 or 3 years. And this is one of the reasons why a short sale is better than a foreclosure. But if you can go ahead and just sit tight there 1 second, I'm going to do something real quick with the audience. I want to share my screen, and let's go ahead and do this here because there is something I want to show them that the option that is available for, let me see here. I'm having a little trouble with this thing here. Okay. By the way, folks, for you real estate professionals out there, this is Realty Track. Realty Track. I go here all the time to see how the stats are for foreclosures across the country. And here's what I tell real estate agents that are thinking about getting into short sales. Don't necessarily get into the short sale niche, because that's what this is. This is a very powerful niche. Don't get in because you're thinking that the world's coming to an end and you need to do it because this is going to happen, because it may not happen. I don't like to sell things based on that. I like agents to engage in this niche because this is the reality that we have right now. Here are your top 5 states right now: Delaware, number 1, New Jersey, Illinois, Connecticut, and then there's Florida. And when you look across the country right now, how many other states are in lockdown mode and who knows when they're going to open and everything else, that just tells you that the opportunity could potentially grow. Now, why is it an opportunity? Because the vast majority of real estate agents avoid short sales. They're afraid of them. They just don't know how to work them. And because of that, they don't even get involved. And that is why I created Short Sale Mastery. So allow me a 60-second pitch for my training program. And that is, I wanted to make it completely online. I didn't want the issue of safety or, coming to a location and everything else. I love the fact I can sit here at my computer and I can train agents all over the country without ever leaving the comfort of my home or office. But I wanted to design this in a way that was built in stages, because too often when you go to a class and everything is thrown at you at one time, you don't remember half the stuff they covered in the first hour of the class. So I designed Short Sale Mastery for it to be taught in layers. So I teach it over 5 90-minute sessions. And this is 100% on Zoom, 90 minutes. You have a week in between to put together the pieces and assignments and structure that you need to take it to the next level. I teach it in a way that even someone that has never done a short sale in their life will understand. So session 1 will be an introduction to short sales. What is a short sale? What it's not? Why is it better than a foreclosure? I also talk about what are the alternatives to a foreclosure, because people should not be rushed into a short sale. They should do everything possible to stay in their home. From there, we get into the paperwork that's needed. What are the qualifications that are needed on behalf of the seller? What does the bank look for? You need to have hardship. You need to have an income shortfall. You need to have insolvency. Then it comes to the point of meeting with the consumer. How to structure that presentation so it can go well, just like it went with us and Madeline and her husband, that we were prepared, we were confident, and we showed them that, yes, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Once you get under contract, that's when the fun begins. You may have to delay the sale date. You may have to help with the negotiations. You got to keep the seller engaged. You got to keep the buyer engaged. And last but not least, in session 5, I teach you to look for short sale opportunities. Where can you get these leads? The scripts, the dialogue, what to say, when to say it, how to say it. All of these things are covered over these 5 weeks. And I wanted to make it affordable. So I did this for only $149. Everything I just mentioned is $149. It's 7.5 hours of training. My first series, because I'm just launching this, will start Tuesday, May 19th at 1 p.m. Eastern, and it will continue for 5 consecutive Tuesdays. And that's it. That's how it works. It's either going to work for you, it's not going to work for you, but you may have questions. And in that case, I encourage you to go ahead and post the questions on either this chat here or reach out to me directly and everything else. I think that's it. Let me take a look here to see if there's any questions. I don't think so. Or if not, I'll just go ahead and answer these and everything afterward. All right. Man, I can't thank you enough. I can't thank you enough for your willingness to go ahead and, come in, or not necessarily come in, right? It's the new normal now is
Zoom in.
to be available and everything else. But I just can't thank you enough for your transparency and your willingness to go ahead and share this information. I think your courage is going to bless a lot of folks, because if agents will just share this information, they can let people know that foreclosure is not the only option. And I can't thank you enough for doing this. Now, one other favor I want to ask you is, I'm thinking, in fact, I know, forget about thinking, I'm going to do this same training in Spanish, 100% in Spanish. So maybe
Okay.
when the time comes in the next 30 or 45 days, I'll call upon you again so we can do this whole thing en español. ¿Qué
Pues
piensas?
está muy bien.
Okay. God bless you and your
Thank you.
husband and your family. Stay safe. And you know that whatever you need, we're here for you, dear. Okay?
Thank you. It was my pleasure. And if I can help, if my story or our story can help other people, I'm willing to share 100 times.
Well, you
Share
did.
and share and share.
You did. You did awesome. Thank you so very much. God bless you. Take care.
God bless you too. Thank you,
Okay.
Tony.
Bye bye.
Bye.